Have you ever felt tangled in a complex dynamic, constantly reacting, like your inner landscape isn't entirely your own? It's a deeply disconcerting feeling, one that can leave you questioning yourself and your reality. What if I told you that understanding the depths of the human psyche, as mapped out by figures like Carl Jung, offers a profound path through this? His work gives us a lens to see beyond the surface struggle and identify the true markers of psychological freedom. In this exploration, we'll uncover how applying Jungian principles reveals the quiet, internal signs that you've not only survived a challenging relationship, but have achieved a deeper victory, one rooted in your own psychological sovereignty. Prepare to gain clarity and recognize the subtle shifts that indicate you are truly free. When you're caught in a dynamic that demands constant emotional energy, it's often because the other person is tapping into a fundamental part of your psyche, your ego. The ego, in simple terms, is that part of us that interacts with the outer world, seeking validation, understanding, and a sense of identity through external interactions. Narcissists, in their deep insecurity, are masters at exploiting this need. They bait you into reactions because your emotional response, whether anger, sadness, or frustration, provides fuel. It validates their existence, their narrative, their power over you. Your reactions become the distorted mirror they need to prop up their fragile sense of self. Think about the energy spent trying to explain yourself, to make them see your perspective, to justify your feelings or actions. This constant effort originates from the ego's desire for recognition and harmony in the external world. It's also tied up with the persona, the social masks we wear. Perhaps you adopted a persona of patience, compliance, or relentless optimism in an attempt to navigate the relationship, only to find it draining and ineffective. Reacting constantly keeps you tethered to their reality, caught in a loop where your own internal world, your true needs and feelings, become secondary. Breaking free isn't about winning an argument or inflicting pain. It's about reclaiming that energy. It's a profound internal shift, a turning away from the external battlefield and towards your inner landscape. This is where the wisdom of Carl Jung becomes incredibly powerful. He understood that true psychological growth comes from exploring the unconscious, the vast reservoir of our experiences, instincts, and potentials that lies beneath the surface of our conscious awareness. The key is to stop feeding the dynamic. When you stop providing the expected emotional reaction, you create a vacuum. This isn't a manipulative tactic. It's a consequence of you redirecting your vital energy inward. Instead of pouring energy into the frustrating cycle of explanation and justification, you begin investing it in yourself. This is the foundation of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming a whole, unique individual, integrating the various parts of the psyche, including the less desirable aspects stored in the shadow. As you withdraw your energy from the external struggle, you start to explore the symbols and messages arising from your own unconscious. Perhaps through dreams or moments of deep introspection, you begin to listen to your inner voice, guided by the emerging wisdom of the self, the central archetype representing the totality of the psyche and the drive towards wholeness. This inward focus strengthens your core. It shifts your source of validation from external approval or understanding to internal knowing. Your sense of worth becomes rooted in your own being, not in how others perceive you or react to you. This internal grounding is what makes external reactions less compelling, less necessary. Your silence in this context isn't born of coldness or calculation. It's born of a deep, quiet strength derived from connecting with yourself. It's the sound of energy returning home, no longer scattered in futile attempts to engage with a dynamic that thrives on its dissipation. This redirection of energy is seismic. It shifts the gravitational center of the dynamic. The narcissist system, built on the foundation of controlling others through emotional reactivity and maintaining a carefully constructed persona, begins to lose its footing. The target, no longer feeding the machine with their distress or attempts to reason, becomes an anomaly. This non-reaction is a powerful, albeit passive force. It challenges the very structure of the narcissist's external reality, which depends on others mirroring their distorted perceptions and validating their inflated ego. Without the expected supply, the cracks in the persona become more visible, not just to the target, but eventually to the surrounding satellites, the flying monkeys. These individuals often operate under the sway of the narcissist's dominant will or shared delusion, perhaps avoiding their own shadow aspects by focusing on the perceived flaws of the target. They believe the narrative because it served a purpose, often rooted in fear, convenience, or a desire for reflected status within the narcissist's orbit. They were part of the system, sometimes unconsciously, upholding the narcissist's fragile ego and reinforcing the artificial reality projected through the persona. They saw the target through the lens the narcissist provided, accepting those symbols and interpretations without question. Carl Jung provided profound insights into these psychological structures, and their interplay becomes evident as the system unravels. But as the target deepens their connection to their own self, embarking more fully on the path of individuation, they emanate a quiet confidence that doesn't require external validation. They are guided by an internal compass, tuned to the deeper wisdom of the unconscious and the language of archetypes playing out in their own psyche. They are listening to their dreams, understanding the symbols within them, gaining insight into their own motivations and the true nature of the dynamic they were caught in. This internal work solidifies the ego, making it resilient against external manipulation. This newfound internal stability in the target creates dissonance for the flying monkeys. They observe the target's calm detachment in the face of situations that used to elicit significant emotional turmoil. They see the narcissist's escalating attempts to provoke, which now simply bounce off the target's strengthened psychological boundaries. The narrative they were sold, that the target was the unstable, difficult one, starts to unravel. They begin to notice the inconsistencies in the narcissist's stories, the chaos that follows them, the projection of the narcissist's own shadow onto anyone who dares to challenge their narrative. It's like a synchronicity of events starts to reveal the underlying truth. The flying monkeys are then faced with a choice, often on an unconscious level. Do they continue to align with the collapsing persona and the increasingly erratic narcissist? Or do they acknowledge the reality embodied by the psychologically free target? The target's quiet strength, rooted in their connection to the self and the integration gained through individuation, becomes a silent indictment of the false reality the narcissist has constructed. It forces the satellites to confront their own complicity, their own shadow aspects they might have been avoiding, and the uncomfortable truth that they were supporting a facade. Carl Jung spoke of the importance of integrating the shadow, and the target's journey highlights the consequences of failing to do so, both for the narcissist and those within their sphere of influence. The symbols of authority and control the narcissist once wielded start to lose their power. The flying monkeys relied on these symbols to orient themselves within the dynamic. When the target becomes impermeable to them, the symbols become hollow, losing their ability to compel obedience or belief. The unconscious of the flying monkeys begins to stir, questioning their roles and their allegiance. They may start having dreams that challenge their current perspective, or experience moments of synchronicity that highlight the falseness of the situation. This collective awakening, though often painful and disorienting for the flying monkeys, marks the beginning of the narcissist's support system crumbling. They relied on the target's predictable reactions to keep the system stable. When the target became unpredictable by being authentic and centered in their self, the entire edifice began to shake. The ego of the narcissist, so heavily invested in controlling the narrative and projecting their shadow onto others, finds itself isolated as their former allies start to drift away. They are abandoning the ship not necessarily out of solidarity with the target, but because the ship of the narcissist's false reality is quite literally sinking. This process isn't about revenge or strategic maneuvering by the target. It's a natural consequence of psychological liberation. The target's commitment to their own growth, their exploration of their unconscious, their understanding of archetypes, and their journey towards individuation creates an energy field of authenticity that the artificiality of the narcissist system cannot sustain. The flying monkeys, previously held in orbit by the narcissist's gravitational pull and the target's reactive energy, find themselves released as the target's focus shifts inward towards the self. They start to see the narcissist's machinations not as powerful strategies, but as desperate attempts by a fragile ego to maintain control as their persona disintegrates. The symbols of power are revealed as empty gestures when they fail to elicit the desired reaction. The target's psychological immunity acts like a catalyst, accelerating the disintegration of the narcissist's carefully constructed world. The flying monkeys, no longer effectively weaponized against a target who is unassailable in their inner peace, begin to experience the full, unadulterated force of the narcissist's erratic behavior and projected shadow. There's nowhere left for the narcissist to externalize their inner turmoil when the primary target is no longer available as a receptacle. This forces the flying monkeys, perhaps for the first time, to confront the true nature of the person they've been supporting. Their dreams might become more disturbing, filled with symbols of decay and falseness, reflecting the breakdown of the system they were part of. Synchronicity might bring about encounters or revelations that make it impossible for them to continue believing the narcissist's lies. The target, grounded in their self and continuing their path of individuation, stands as a quiet testament to psychological reality. They are no longer enmeshed in the complex projections and manipulations that characterize the narcissist's relationships. Their persona is aligned with their inner being, unlike the narcissist whose persona is a defense against confronting their own shadow. Carl Jung's work provides a framework for understanding this contrast, the movement towards wholeness versus the entrenchment in a fragmented defensive ego. As the target integrates more aspects of their unconscious and understands the archetypal forces at play, they become less and less controllable. The flying monkeys, witnessing this shift and experiencing the increasing instability emanating from the narcissist, face their own reckoning. Do they align with the chaos or seek their own form of psychological reality? Many begin to distance themselves, subtly at first, then more overtly. The cost of remaining in the narcissist's orbit starts to outweigh the perceived benefits. They see that the target is not just surviving, but thriving, precisely because they have stopped engaging with the false system and invested in their own internal world, their dreams, their symbols, their unconscious wisdom. The strength derived from connecting with the self and embracing the journey of individuation is not something that can be attacked or undermined by external forces. It is an inner fortress. The narcissist's tools of manipulation, gaslighting, triangulation, smear campaigns, lose their effectiveness because they rely on the target's emotional response. When the target no longer provides that response, the tools become impotent. The flying monkeys, observing this repeated failure of the narcissist's tactics, begin to recognize the futility of their own role in the dynamic. Their belief in the narcissist's power structure erodes, replaced by a growing awareness of the narcissist's underlying fragility and the toxic nature of their environment. The symbols of loyalty and shared purpose that bound them to the narcissist begin to feel like chains. This realization often comes with a surge of energy that was previously bound in maintaining the false narrative, energy that is now freed up as they consider abandoning ship. This surge of energy, once trapped in upholding the intricate facade created by the narcissist's manipulative ego, is now available for the flying monkeys to reinvest in their own lives, their own budding sense of self, however nascent. They begin to see the symbolic weight of the narcissist's demands for what it is, an attempt to control external reality because the narcissist lacks an internal one. Carl Jung understood the vital importance of this internal landscape. When this external control begins to slip, as it inevitably does when the target disengages and finds strength in their own individuation journey, the narcissist experiences a profound existential threat. Their fragile ego, built upon external validation and control, feels the ground crumbling beneath it. They observe the target, no longer bound by their influence, radiating a newfound peace and resilience. They see the authentic connection the target has forged with their deeper self, a connection that didn't require external mirroring or validation. This authenticity, this freedom, is something the narcissist covets but cannot understand on a fundamental level. They perceive the target's strength, born from integrating their shadow and connecting with their unconscious world, as a secret technique or a trick. They believe they can replicate it by simply going through the motions. This is where the empty mimicry begins. The narcissist might suddenly express interest in therapy, mindfulness, or self-help gurus. They might talk about personal growth, or even drop concepts they've overheard, perhaps mentioning Carl Jung or the idea of the self in a superficial way. They are attempting to wear the target's progress like a new persona, hoping it will grant them the same inner peace and perceived power. However, this imitation is devoid of the genuine inner work. It lacks the courage to face the unconscious depths, to confront the painful aspects of their shadow, or to truly engage with their dreams and the symbols emerging from their psyche. The narcissist avoids the necessary suffering that accompanies true transformation. Their growth is a performance, another layer to their already elaborate facade, aimed at regaining control, or at least appearing as capable and liberated as the target. They might discuss archetypes, but they don't connect with the powerful guiding energies these represent within their own soul. They might speak of synchronicity, but they fail to recognize the meaningful patterns in their own life that point towards deeper truths they are desperately avoiding. They want the outcome, the inner peace, the resilience, the connection to the self, without undertaking the journey of individuation that requires painful introspection and integration. Their ego cannot tolerate the vulnerability required for genuine healing. They see the target's hard-won freedom as something that can be acquired superficially, through mimicry, rather than earned through the arduous process of integrating their shadow and aligning with the wisdom of the unconscious. This mimicry is a hollow echo, a pale imitation of the vibrant, authentic life the target is building. It highlights the stark contrast between a life rooted in the self and a life dominated by a fragile, compensatory ego. The flying monkeys who are still entangled, or those beginning to disengage, might initially be confused by this shift in the narcissist's presentation. They might wonder if the narcissist is finally changing. But the lack of true emotional depth, the absence of genuine vulnerability, and the continued undercurrent of manipulation eventually expose the mimicry for what it is. Another tactic in the narcissist's repertoire, an attempt to reclaim significance by aping the very person they sought to diminish. This phase underscores the profound psychological gap between someone genuinely engaged in healing and individuation, and someone whose ego can only relate to reality through control and performance. The narcissist cannot access the same wellspring of strength because they cannot tolerate looking inward, confronting their own shadow, or allowing the symbols and wisdom of the unconscious to guide them. They remain trapped by their ego's defenses, forever looking outside themselves for validation and trying to copy the perceived freedom of others. Their attempts at self-improvement are merely another aspect of their persona, lacking the transformative power that comes from authentic engagement with the self and the challenging process of integrating fragmented parts of the psyche. They observe the target's journey, the hard work of sifting through dreams, understanding symbols, and facing uncomfortable truths about their past and present, and they see the result: a person grounded in their own being, less reactive, and operating from a place of inner authority derived from the deepening connection to their self. The core insight here is the fundamental difference between the narcissist's superficial persona, driven by a fragile ego, which can only mimic change, and the target's authentic path of individuation. This genuine journey, illuminated by the work of Jung, requires courageously facing the shadow, integrating the unconscious, and connecting with the true self. It involves understanding symbols found in dreams and recognizing the subtle guidance of archetypes and moments of synchronicity, a depth the narcissist cannot access. Your dedication to this internal work is the source of your strength and grounding. How has this understanding of genuine psychological growth versus mere mimicry impacted your own healing process? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you're a deep thinker interested in exploring these intricate dynamics of the ego, self, persona, shadow, unconscious, archetypes, and individuation, subscribe now and activate notifications for more insights.